So the Princess Royal Challenge Cup. Hazel Wake against Freya Keto. And off they go for that long, lonely row down the Henley stretch of the Thames. Just having a look at the steering on the... You can see we're not the only ones looking at the steering. And we had Freya Keto there on the buck station having a slightly panicked look to left and right. And she has come perilously close to Hazel Wake on the Berkshire station. Yeah, the umpire there is indicating that they need to get back across. It's Freya Keto who's being told to shift back across to her side of the water, and she's duly done that. It's so tough, isn't it, in these, and I know you know all about this, Imogen, in these singles. It's a lonely old business, first of all, but also in terms of the steering, it's all on you. Clearly, it's a really difficult challenge for these boats early on with the currents, and if you're not familiar with this bit of water, really big challenge.
Yeah, it's certainly a long race, and it can be filled with nerves off that start. Everyone talks about the stream off the island there, and you can always feel it quite strongly in the single. You can see there Freya's still being warned. She's a few lengths up now as we pass the barrier or so, but it's always important to keep this a fair race and a fair course.
Yeah, the umpire busily waving the white flag across towards Freya Keto, getting her back onto that bucks station.
Yeah, looking around quite a lot still. She doesn't look quite comfortable with the steering straight line yet, but she's still leading this race here, looks really determined, really powerful in her strokes. It's quite an interesting lineup, this, actually. Hazel's racing...
Yeah, Hazel Wake, who was at Yarm School.
Yeah, that's right, but she's actually also an ex-OUW LRC rower. So in some ways this is almost a Oxford-Cambridge lineup, with Freya from the Blue Boat this year and Hazel from OUW LRC a few years back.
Yes, we've got Freya Keto, who's doing African studies at Cambridge, at Sydney and Brown as well. But she's putting in a good performance, despite she looks more anxious than she ought with her steering. I mean, basically she's in pole position here, isn't she? She's doing a good job, but she's a little bit anxious with, and why wouldn't you? You know, it's as I say, it's a big challenge. But we've had lots of nervous glances, and actually the umpire Sarah Winkles has had to get involved a couple of times. But despite all that, she's comfortably leading against the horsewoman you can see in the picture now, Hazel Wake.
Yeah, that's right. I think they both strayed a little bit away from the booms into the centre at the moment, but there's no foul being carried out at the moment. They're well outside of each other's sort of range of clashing at this point. Freya's really only started probably sculling this year in the single, having swept most of the year for the boat race, and she's been making massive strides in it. I know Paddy Ryan has been coaching her a little bit. You can see him in the launch following, along with I think that's Autumn and one of the other rowers, Isabel, who's in the pair later this week, and just the improvements that she's been able to make over the last few months after the boat race has been absolutely amazing to see.
Yeah, tell us about that transition, because you're someone who knows all about that, how you make that transition, because I mean, it strikes me as almost a completely different sport. You know, you're doing a completely different thing, aren't you? And it's a big change that you have to make, and as you say, it's only fairly recent that change has been made.
Yeah, I mean, switching from the 8 to the single, it's the biggest boat to the smallest boat, and suddenly you don't have a cox, you don't have teammates in the same boat with you. You know, you've kind of got to do everything by yourself, and it can be a physical battle in adjusting to such a small boat, but also a mental battle in terms of your motivation. But, you know, I think Freya's really taken to it. She's got really long, powerful strokes there, and it's really holding it through to the finish. And yeah, I mean, it's really exciting. Freya's been a fantastic member of the boat race squad this year. She's been setting some records, getting onto the leaderboards for Cambridge on the erg. She's really powerful, really strong. It's nice to see her in the light blue lycra, and I think that's a brown cap there, representing where she was before this year, doing that Masters in African Studies. And Hazel definitely not giving up. She's keeping that rate of striking pretty high, keeping it really dynamic as an ex-lightweight might. And yeah, she's been training for many years. She got a silver medal at the intermediate single Bucks Regatta this year. She's raced at Met, raced at Wallingford long distance sculls. She's certainly really experienced, but it's quite something to be able to race at Henley, especially in the single. I remember when I first raced there, it was just the most exciting thing, especially coming through the enclosures with the applause and just the atmosphere around here.
Very special for any rower in their career, and it's going to be a special moment for Freya Keto, who's going to be moving through to the next round of the Princess Royal Challenge Cup. A couple more strokes, and despite looking throughout the course like she was anxious about the steering, it all worked very nicely in the end, and she's got a very comfortable win against Hazel Wake. So through she goes. Well done to Hazel Wake as well.
Yeah, last few strokes for Hazel, across the line.
So it's a win for Freya Keto in the Princess Royal Challenge Cup against Hazel Wake.